this is plant matter. I like to blend it to, keep the surface area, like as much surface area as possible. Plant matter, fill like, I like to make 55-gallon barrels of this, okay? You fill it a third to a half. If you're bold and you're really patient, you have a lot, you can do like 3/4. But I think like a third to a half is pretty solid. And then you add your lactic acid bacteria serum. The ratio is 1:1 to 20. So you add 1 part lactic acid bacteria serum, 1 part your food source, and then 20 parts water. So if you have a lot of sugar in your plant matter, you might want to tone down like how much molasses that you're using. If you have a lot of sugar, you can skip it completely, which is what I typically do. Is I'll fill it with a whole bunch of plant matter. I like using aloe vera, I like using beet, cantaloupe, squash, pumpkin, premature apples, stuff that I mentioned earlier. Blend it all up, add it to this vessel, which I actually have a video on this on my Instagram. Talk about making a fermented plant extract. You add your 1 part lactobacillus to your 1 part food source to your 20 parts water. So let's say you have a 55-gallon barrel, right? Or we're just going to do it right. So we have a 55-gallon barrel. That's 213,125 milliliters, right? So if we divide that by, we have 22 parts total. We know we need about 3 gallons of lactic acid bacteria serum. A little bit less, about 2 and 2/3. We would add 2 2/3, 2.5 gallons of lactic acid bacteria serum. And if we have the volume equal to that in plant matter, probably a little bit more because, it's not all going to be sugar, maybe twice that amount in volume, we would then just add water to fill it all up. But if we're skipping the plant matter completely, you would just add molasses and fill it up with water. And this creates the fermented AEM, activated effective microorganisms. But with the plant matter, it is the fermented plant extract. When you fill it up to the top, you mix it nice and good. You cap it, you keep it anaerobic. You have to have a little valve, one of those little water valves, so like bubble ones, like that are used in fermentation. People use them in beer and wine and stuff like that to off-gas CO2. This also prevents oxygen from getting into the culture because it is an anaerobic fermentation. Lactobacillus is technically called facultative, which means it can survive in anaerobic conditions. But in this situation, we want to keep it anaerobic as possible. So we cap it, we seal it, we add one of those little air off-gassing bubble valve things, and we will let that sit for 3 weeks. And we watch it, don't open it. Let it sit for 3 weeks, test it with a pH pen, see what the pH is. If it's between 3.2 and 3.7, it's done. This will help us give an idea of how much lactic acid is inside of the culture. And when that lactic acid concentration reaches a certain level, it'll be within that range. And so we know that the bacteria, the lactobacillus, has released enough lactic acid to reach a particular concentration that we know that it's done. So 3.5, it's done. Anywhere between 3.2, 3.7, it's good. You can't get it down that low, it's a failure. It usually never gets lower than that, though. I've never seen that happen. You have to be careful when using plant inputs that are alkaline. If you don't get your culture low enough, the lactobacillus isn't going to thrive. So this is a problem when people are using the leaves of plants that they might defoliate the under part of. A common one that people do that with is often very alkaline. And so to kind of accommodate for that, we can use things like apple cider vinegar to drop that pH to about the 4.5 to 4 range, and it'll help facilitate the multiplication of the lactobacillus quicker. So it is good to check the pH before you start your culture and before you seal it, because if you're using plant matter that is very alkaline, it's going to interrupt the functionality of the fermentation. If you open it up after 3 weeks, pH is good, take a little shot glass of it. There shouldn't be a pellicle, which is like a collection of lactobacillus that's going to protect the rest of the culture from oxygen. It's just like a thin film. If there isn't a pellicle, that's good. It means that your barrel was completely sealed and there was no air that got inside. If there is a pellicle, it's not horrible. It's not really a bad thing. It doesn't represent a fail. But there was oxygen that got in your barrel, and that's just something to note. Take a little shot glass, collect it, set it out for a couple days, see how quickly that pellicle forms. If the pellicle doesn't form, it was a fail. You didn't multiply lactobacillus. If it does, then that's a strong culture. This is a way of determining the strength and microbial density of lactobacillus-based products as well. A lot of people sell FPEs, a lot of people sell lactobacillus cultures. And if you don't have a microscope and you want to see if this thing is actually viable and alive, take a shot glass of it and leave it out. If it doesn't form a pellicle within a day or two, it's weak. If you get one, the quicker the better. Eventually it'll probably form something, but if you're at 7 days, that product is inferior to something that you could make at home. That's a good thing to know about. If you had a successful one, you got your pellicle, you got it within the pH range. This is something that you would use between 15 to 60 milliliters per gallon. I typically use it just at 30. You can use it as a foliar spray application. If you really want to get fancy with it, you can get a refractometer and see how much sugar content is in it. If you have a lot of sugar left in your culture after those 3 weeks, you overfed it. And it's not like a huge big deal, it's not going to create problems, but it will if you're going to start foliar spraying it. If you foliar spray sugar onto your leaf surface, you're going to start getting things like whiteflies or different pests that are attracted to sugars. So it's important to not overapply inputs that have a lot of sugar in them. And if you do, you need to have a microbial source along with it to help consume that sugar. But if you add too much sugar and you foliar spray it on your plants, you're going to have some big issues. So just to be mindful, it's better to underfeed your cultures than overfeed them.
This clip was brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrowit15 to save on any of their gardening products.